James Labelle was a star athlete in high school, but dropped out to join the Marine Corps, his mother reluctantly signing the 17-year-old's permission papers. The private first class would celebrate his 19th birthday, storming the beaches of Iwo Jima with the 5th Marine Division. Labelle was part of a platoon tasked with taking the well-fortified Japanese stronghold at Nishi Ridge. After days of intense fighting, the men took respite in a cave as the setting sun cast a blinding glow over their position. "Incoming," shouted Labelle as a grenade landed alongside 3 Marines who were resting up. Instead of running, Labelle threw his body over it, saving his 3 buddies. It would take 3 Marine divisions and 6 weeks of intense fighting for the island to be secured. Of the 21,000 Japanese soldiers on Iwo Jima at the beginning of the battle, only 216 were taken prisoner. James Labelle posthumously received the Medal of Honor in 1946, and in 2013 was awarded his high school diploma. Rest in peace. He played just 1 Major League Baseball game and never came to bat. He was a real-life Moonlight Archie Graham, the character in Field of Dreams who played only 1 inning in the big leagues. His name was Harry O'Neil, though most called him Porky because of his stout frame. O'Neil was a 3-sport star in college and highly pursued by his hometown Philadelphia Athletics. He played just 1 game as a late-inning replacement and was sent back down. The day after Pearl Harbor, O'Neil joined the Marines as a first lieutenant with the Weapons Company of the 4th Marine Division. He was gravely wounded during the Battle of Saipan and sent stateside to recuperate. Amazingly, Porky O'Neil insisted on returning to the Pacific, where he participated in the Battle of Tinian before moving on to Iwo Jima. It was at Iwo where he was killed on the first day of fighting while taking out a Japanese sniper nest. "I've lived a full life," were his final words to a corpsman who eased his suffering. God bless Porky O'Neil. So Hollywood is rife with wannabe tough guys. You guys know that. Actors who talk the talk but never walk the walk. There's way too many to itemize, but I'm sure you have your thoughts on who I'm talking about. And Hollywood also has legit heroes who walk the walk and never talked about it. 3 in particular stand out to me. Russell Johnson, the professor from Gilligan's Island. The guy flew 44 combat missions in the Pacific, busted both ankles when his bomber ditched in the Pacific, treaded water for 12 hours before being fished out, and never ever spoke about it. In fact, his co-star Dawn Wells didn't even learn of his heroics until his funeral. Then there's Sherelle Book, Boss Hogg. Yes, that Boss Hogg. The guy spoke 12 languages. He enlisted in the Army so that he could serve as a counterintelligence officer during the Korean War and never once bragged about it. A true genius and war hero. And my favorite, Julia Child. She worked for the OSS during the war, the forerunner of the CIA, invented shark repellent. She would later call it her first culinary contribution to the world. Check out our 3-part series on Hollywood heroes. We've gotten a ton of comments about 2 similar stories, parachuter Robert Hillman and sailor Elgin Staples. The stories are similar. In both cases, their mothers had a hand in their safety and well-being. In the case of Robert Hillman, his mother Doris had assembled his parachute at the Pioneer Parachute Company where she worked. He found out when he was inspecting his gear in the pre-dawn hours of D-Day and noticed her initials on the chute. Yes, it really did happen. Google Robert Hillman and you'll see multiple credible stories on it. And the same is true in the case of sailor Elgin Staples, who spent 12 hours bobbing in the Pacific after his ship was torpedoed. The only thing that kept him alive was the rubber life belt cinched around his waist. He took the belt back home with him to Akron, Ohio, and showed it to his mother. It turns out she worked at the Firestone Company, and her inspector number was on the belt. Again, this is real, it happened. The belt is at the World War II Museum. You could see it for yourself. 2 amazing stories, both similar in nature, both 100% real. God bless the greatest generation. So the summer of 1947, a woman walked into a drugstore in Tupelo, Mississippi to drop off film to be developed when she realized she had 1 exposure left. She noticed a young boy outside the drugstore and asked him to pose with his shiny new bicycle so she could finish the roll and turn it in. The boy obliged and then went off on his merry way before she could thank him or catch his name. "What a handsome young man," she told the clerk as she turned over the film. She developed the roll and tucked the picture of the boy in a shoebox and stored it in the attic. Decades later, as she was cleaning out the attic, she stumbled upon the dusty old shoebox filled with papers and a random photo. "Oh, that young boy from way back when," she thought to herself. She stared at the picture. There was something about it. He looked so strangely familiar. She stood up and held it under a lamp. A chill ran down her spine as she suddenly dropped the picture. She realized that the boy was none other than Elvis Presley. Over the past year, we heard from so many of you that we needed to write a book about all the amazing heroes that we profiled. Well, we listened and we have. It's called That's How It Goes. The title comes from a Sinatra song from the early 40s, and it's a fictional story of 3 high school students and one of their teachers as they enlist following the attacks on Pearl Harbor. You're going to recognize all 4 of the main characters. They're very loosely based on real people and events that we've profiled on our channel over the past year. And we've tied their amazing stories together in a way that you will absolutely love. Just trust me. So if you've been one of the tens of thousands to put tear emojis in your comments or ask, where's the movie, then you will absolutely love this book. And yes, there'll certainly be a movie someday, I'm sure of it. In fact, it was originally written as a screenplay, and the novel very much reads like a movie. You can get it on Amazon, and I'll be doing a longer video on it with the chance to win some autographed copies. It really is an homage to the greatest generation in keeping with the spirit of this channel, and you're gonna love it. He was the first president to have an electric fridge in the White House. He was the only president to be born on the 4th of July, and he was also the only president to have his dad administer the oath of office. As president, he had a mechanical horse installed in the White House for exercise, and while in the White House, he had a pet raccoon named Rebecca, which the press corps adored. Leave your answers in the comments for a chance to win a signed copy of my new book. That's how it goes.
He's considered by many to be among the greatest outfielders in Major League Baseball history. He finished his career with exactly 3,000 hits, won 2 World Series, 12 Gold Gloves, 4 batting titles, and a league MVP. His name was Roberto Clemente, and during the prime of his career, he enlisted in the United States Marine Corps as a reserve infantryman in the 3rd Recruit Battalion, where he would spend his off-season serving on active duty. Clemente considered his humanitarian work and time with the Marine Corps more rewarding than his accomplishments on the diamond. He took nothing for granted, saying, "God tells you how long you're going to be here, so you never know what can happen tomorrow." Tragically, Roberto Clemente died in a plane crash while delivering aid to earthquake-ravaged Nicaragua on New Year's Eve 1972 at the age of 38. He was immediately voted into the Baseball Hall of Fame, and MLB established the Roberto Clemente Award for sportsmanship and community involvement. He was in danger of not making it through the long jump preliminaries, having fouled on his first 2 attempts. He was trying to do the unthinkable, win 4 gold medals in the 1936 Olympics, and with it, thumb Adolf Hitler in the eye in front of a packed stadium in Berlin. Jesse Owens was startled to see his primary competitor, Germany's Carl Lewis Long, approach him before his final jump. "Jump a foot before the line," Long told him in broken English. "You have plenty of distance." The tip worked, and Owens would go on to take the gold with Long winning silver. They became close friends and corresponded regularly. The last letter Long ever wrote was to Jesse Owens just days before he was killed during the Battle of Sicily. "If I don't make it, please go to Germany and find my son Carl," he pleaded with Owens. "Tell him about his father and what times were like when we are not separated by war. Tell him how things can be between men on this earth." There was 1 out in the bottom of the 4th inning during a seemingly ordinary late April game at Dodgers Stadium. The year was 1976, and Chicago Cubs center fielder Rick Monday noticed something unusual out of the corner of his eye. 2 protesters had made their way onto the outfield grass and were about to set fire to an American flag. "If you're going to burn the flag, don't do it around me," recalled Monday, who spent 6 years in the Marine Reserves while playing in the major leagues. "I've been to too many veterans' hospitals and seen too many broken bodies of guys who tried to protect it." With the bicentennial celebration just months away, Monday indeed protected the sacred flag, the one that so many gave their lives defending. When he came to bat the following inning, Monday received a standing ovation from the Dodgers faithful as they spontaneously broke into "God Bless America." Legendary broadcaster Vin Scully captured the moment perfectly after the game. The Dodgers win the game 5-4, but a Cub saves the day. Tracers streaked past in a dizzying pattern as the embattled C-47 performed lethal acrobatics. Nurse Drury held her breath as she looked out the window, practically willing the Corsairs to prevail. Nerve-wracking minutes seemed to stretch into eternity before the tide finally turned and the Corsairs gained the upper hand. 1-0 after another was sent flaming toward the sea, plumes of smoke trailing behind them. As the triumphant American fighters broke away, one dared an absurdly close flyby. Nurse Drury glimpsed the name Boyington emblazoned below its canopy as its pilot nodded to their own. With the swarming Zeros vanquished, an eerie calm settled over the transport plane as it descended toward Henderson Field. The C-47 shuddered as it touched down on the crude runway gouged into the volcanic rock. Even before the plane fully stopped, the side doors were sliding open and Marines swarmed aboard carrying the wounded. Nurse Drury found herself in the center of the grim chaos as the evac crew swiftly loaded the plane. He was struggling with the script, hesitant to come out of his trailer. The hulking actor, known for his tough guy persona, had finished blocking the scene and was overcome with uncontrollable emotion. He was Neville Brand, one of the most respected character actors of the 50s and 60s, and he was filming an episode of The Twilight Zone about a World War II veteran who's forced to relive the horrors of the war. Only for Neville Brand it wasn't acting. 2 decades earlier, he lay bleeding to death in a cabin along the Weser River in Germany, having stormed it single-handedly and clearing out a German sniper nest. The Purple Heart recipient never spoke of the incident until a knock on his trailer door that day. It was Rod Serling, and after the 2 men chatted, Brand returned to the set and turned in a brilliant performance. When Serling passed away, Neville Brand traveled cross-country to attend the service. "I wouldn't be here were it not for Rod," he was overheard tearfully whispering to a mourning Charles Bronson. "He saved me once upon a time." It's one of the most iconic scenes in cinematic history. Jimmy Stewart at a bar begging God for guidance and redemption. The movie was It's a Wonderful Life, but it wasn't George Bailey on the verge of a nervous breakdown. It was actually Jimmy Stewart. Stewart was less than a year removed from combat when filming took place, and he was still suffering badly from combat exhaustion and mental fatigue from having flown 25 bomber missions over continental Europe. Jimmy was a different person when he returned from the war, observed his best friend Henry Fonda. He was hollowed out and the lights seemed to be extinguished. Stewart was on the verge of quitting Hollywood and moving back to Pennsylvania to run the family hardware store when his friend Frank Capra threw him a lifeline with the part of George Bailey, a man struggling to understand his role in life. "I didn't know how much help I needed until Frank reached out to me," Stewart would reflect years later. "He not only saved my career, he saved my life."